Okay guys, welcome to episode 2. This video is going to be all about ammo testing, and then once I've established which type of ammunition I want to roll with for the remainder of this video, I then go into truing my ballistic solver to line up with reality downrange, so then I can then move on to step 3 of this video, which is our modern day sniper known distance evaluation in the prone position. So I have those videos already recorded for you, which you'll see after my little studio take here. That'll be the truing and the MDS eval. But right now I want to talk to you guys about what's leading up to that. So where am I at right now with the rifle? So full transparency, I've had to go through this now a second time because I ran into some hiccups. So the very first thing that I encountered when I was doing this was, like I said in the first video, I'm going to clean the rifle, strip it down somewhere around that 100-ish round mark, and then start my ammo testing. Well, I did that. First thing I noticed when I went to clean the rifle is stock was a little loose. Not the end of the world. I mean, I even own an Accuracy International and pretty much brand new. I had a screw strip and the trigger went down. So regardless of how reputable a company is or how expensive something is, it's not impervious to imperfections. So it's not a big deal that I just had to tighten a screw. But what did become an issue was when I wanted to go ahead and clean this, I realized you can't remove this cheek piece without needing, in my opinion, a special tool to remove the set screw to completely disassemble the wing nut here to remove the cheek piece entirely. Out of the multiple sets that we had here, we didn't have the right size that would fit this, so I kind of did a 2 bird 1 stone thing and just removed this whole back half here to get that out of the way, which also allowed me to get my Allen key into the screw to tighten that a little bit more snug. Real pain in the ass, to be completely honest with you, but it's not the end of the world because the folder is coming out soon. So once that folder comes, if you're willing to spend the extra coin to get the folder, you can then get that out of the way and it won't be an issue. So I'm not going to really count that as a hit as far as it getting loose. I will count it as a hit in terms of the lack of ease, if you will, to be able to remove the cheek piece to clean the rifle, because essentially you got to go through that process if you don't even have a folder. So that's kind of a flaw, but it's not the end of the world. A couple things I changed since episode 1 is I did flip the night vision bridge backwards. It's longer in this part, so it allows my thumb to get that good placement on there in positional shooting without contacting the barrel. I lighten the trigger a little bit more, so it's sitting at around 2¼ pounds right now. And then the adjustable butt pad, it's pretty unique on how they go about it. It's like a grid pattern of screw holes, and you essentially just set it to where you want in the overlay and then screw it in. I'll have B-roll here that you guys are probably already seeing. That's pretty much the only thing I adjusted since episode 1. And so then I went ahead and began ammo testing. So the 3 types of ammunition I used, because I'm not going to go through every type of 6.5 ammo that exists, but I just picked 3 pretty popular ones. So I have the Hornady 140 grain ELD match, I have the Berger 130 OTM Tacticals, and I have the Sacco TRG 136 grain CNRLs open tip match. And I went through this fashion in a round robin way, and I'll overlay the group sizes for you guys, but I started with Hornady, then the Berger, and then the Sacco ammo, and I did 3 sets of 5-round groups because I don't think 3-round groups are enough to really tell you what you need to know. So I did 5-round groups 3 different times. I gave approximately 5 to 7-ish minutes between each grouping to somewhat let it cool, but not completely, and just kind of roll through the testing from that point once I've already stripped all the copper and cleaned the barrel down real well. And then I went to the ammo testing. First, I fouled it with 5 rounds of Hornady. Honestly, it doesn't really matter what you foul it with, but I fouled it with 5 rounds of that so you have an idea. I then began to chrono each group, and so these were the results that I got. So first up, the 3 groups that I got with the Hornady here. I have my Excel spreadsheet right here in front of me. The average group size for all 3 5-round groups of the Hornady is 1.05 minutes with an average velocity of 2691 and an extreme spread of 35. That means from the slowest round to the highest round. That's the extreme spread. Now, from that point, I went to the Bergers, and I had an average of a 0.61 minute of angle group, almost twice as good with an average velocity of 2766 and an ES of 42. So you guys are seeing these groups already. Burgers did really well. A lot of them were 4 rounds in 1 hole-ish, and then 1 flyer just outside of it. So that is including the flyers. Then I went to the Sacco, which you guys are going to be seeing here. These are the 3 5-round groups with the Sacco. They shot pretty well also. It was a .69 MOA, so very similar to the Burgers. Average velocity of 2779, so a little bit faster average, but an extreme spread of 72. Not very consistent. So when we're talking about precision shooting at distance, you'll have these things called muzzle velocity fluctuations. So the more consistent the muzzle velocity is, the more consistent your drop will be at distance, so you're not chasing dope, if you will, if that makes sense. So what round did I choose to go with? Well, the Hornady was the most consistent, which is nice, but it was only 7 feet per second difference in extreme spread from the Burger, but at the cost of almost twice the group size. So I went ahead and went with the Burger ammunition right here. And that's what I chose to continue this testing with, was Burger. I didn't like that it was about a 42 ES, but it wasn't the worst, like the 72 from the Sacco, but it grouped about twice as well as the Hornady, so I chose to go with the Burger. And then from that point on, I went on with my testing to true and then do the MDS Eval. This is where I started to run into some issues. I then started finding myself chasing dope, or I would true it, and then for some reason something wasn't lining up in between the testing. I got frustrated with all of it, and then took a step back. I'm like, okay, maybe the gun actually sped up now at this point. Probably around shots somewhere in the ballpark of 120. Somewhere in there during this testing, it must have sped up at least a little bit, or something changed. So I redid everything. I cleaned it yet again, which means I had to remove this stock because I didn't have the tool for the wing nut. Pain in the ass, but I had to remove that. Cleaned it all out, fouled it with 5 rounds, 6 rounds actually, and then I didn't bother doing the ammo test again because the groups were the groups. It said, like, it was clear that the Burger was grouping better, and it gave me a good idea of that the extreme spread was still what it was for the Burger. I ended up testing I zero then to the Burger, and then from this point on, I then put a 10-round string of fire with the Burgers through it to see if it sped up, and it did. It sped up about 20 feet a second faster, and so I ended up removing the slowest round in that string of fire. Probably shouldn't have, but it was kind of an anomaly, so I didn't want that to affect the overall average of the 9 other rounds, which was the slower 2750. But with that ES, if you include that slow round, it was an ES of 59. It wasn't really that good, but I removed that, and it only changed the average by a couple feet per second. So now the average was 2786, which was 20 feet a second faster than the 2766. So from this point on, I then changed it and now did the truing and MDS Eval all over again. And that's what you guys are going to see here coming up shortly. But it was an interesting test. It went really well once everything was finally settled in and lined up. So this barrel took a little bit longer to kind of settle in, if you will, than some other barrels from my experience, which is usually around the 100-ish round mark with a 6.5 Creedmoor. This was probably somewhere around the 120, 130 round mark is where I started to notice it speeding up. Not a big deal, just be aware of that. So if you start to run issues downrange past 100 rounds, maybe that's what it is. Check the velocity again. So this was a good video. I really enjoyed it. It was a little stressful between having to go back and forth and then the cleaning process. But again, the folder will come out, will mitigate that issue. And then performance downrange. One thing I do want to touch on is you'll see this video here with the truing and the MDS Eval, but there are some things that have come to my attention in regards to just overall how a rifle does downrange. So even if everything is pretty much seems to be about equal on paper, maybe on a chronograph, things like that compared to other rifles, I found that some rifles just do it easier at distance. I don't have an explanation as to why that is. It just somehow makes your life easier at distance. This one wasn't too bad, but I have shot some rifles that were a little bit easier at distance. Again, I don't have an explanation for what that is. But just understand, like, hey, what is the price point for this? This is kind of what I, and so far in my thought process through this video series, is thinking this is more of a mid-tier rifle, if you will. So definitely can perform at distance, which you guys are going to see here coming up, but maybe not the utmost precision rifle, like a custom built from a reputable gunsmith. But that's also, I don't think, what the point of this is. So if you guys are looking into this as a competition mindset, I think it is a performer, which you guys are going to see on the MDS eval, which is the point of that eval, is sustained rates of fire. How does it perform? You guys are also going to hear me mention how bolt lifts get a little heavy as this barrel starts to get kind of hot. But that's pretty much any rifle, to be honest with you. I've used multiple rifles, and especially suppressed, if that barrel gets really hot and it's a lighter contour barrel, I'll start to notice heavier bolt lifts. Not a diss on this, that's pretty much just rifles in general. But hope you guys enjoy this, and look forward to seeing you guys in episode 3, but I hope you enjoy this truing and then MDS eval. See you guys in the next episode. Hey, what's up guys? So here at the range, again, redoing this validation and MDS qual because the gun sped up on me in the middle of this whole video episode. And so I cleaned it again, as I talked about in the studio already. And then came here, validated, or made sure it's still zeroed, which was fine. I came at 10th right, that was about it, but elevation was still solid. And then so I did 6 rounds for that, and then I went to the chrono and put 10, I believe, through the chrono, shortly after shooting the 6 rounds for the zero. And it had an ES for those 10 rounds of, I believe, 59, which was not great by any means. And so I went ahead and deleted the absolute slowest one because it was kind of an anomaly, but could be realistic. But either way, I went ahead and deleted it, which was the 2750. It only changed the average by about 4 or 5 feet a second. So the average now is 2786, which is 20 feet a second faster than originally with the 15 round average that I took. So I'm still sticking with the burgers. I just plugged it in the Kestrel, the new velocity, and now I'm going to go through this again. Now, we got some pretty shitty winds right now, and it keeps changing. I'm originally not going to worry about aerodynamic jump because from my experience, ballistic solvers typically overpredict them. But if I need to tweak it based on the drop, I'm going to plug the wind in first and see if that amount of wind accounts for the difference in the actual real world drop, and then maybe it is accounting for AJ correctly, but we'll go from there. So I'm going to open up at the furthest target that we have, which is 1140, and we're going to see how this goes. Okay, so we're going to open up now, 1140. It wants 10.1 mils. I'll dial that on. Parallax can't. Now, we're going to see the muzzle velocity swing really present itself now, if I were to predict, based on my experience. And so I think the best bet is to do about 5 rounds because of the inconsistencies, and do at least 5 rounds and see what the average is in drop at that distance. So whether it's a hit or miss, I'm at least going to try and center up for wind, but as far as elevation goes, I'm going to try and do a group like you would when zeroing the rifle anyways. So we're going to see how it goes, get a decent average before I start tweaking ballistic solvers. So here we go, 1140. Winds are pretty freaking inconsistent and wild right now, but we're going to work with it. We'll say I'm just going to open up with the 2 mils left, and we'll see what happens. Oh, I impacted it. 2 mils. Full disclosure, my boy Phil here shot his 647 and impacted with 2 mils, so that's where I got my baseline from. Just a heads up. All right, so impact there, but I'm not going to just say one and done because I need to see the average based on what the velocity is doing. So that impacted, favored right on that, so I'm going to bump it up to about 2.2, and we'll call it 2.1. Impact, pretty centered up. Do another. Impact. Uno mas. Oh, wind picked up a little bit. And you can see that's where a little bit of a velocity swing came from. It right there where my reticle's aiming. So about a 10th high. That probably was a hotter round that came out. But I'm actually pretty happy with that. I might just leave that. For real, actually, Uno mas this time. 2, 2, 3. Impact. All right. So the dope was lining up even with 0 wind in, and I know if I put that windage in, it's gonna screw with the elevation. And from my experience, I've had better success just leaving the wind at 0 because I think they just have a tendency to overpredict aerodynamic jump. That's just my opinion. Ideally, do it on a non-windy day. But this is lining up as is. I'm pretty happy with it, but I'm gonna now confirm on closer targets, make sure everything's good to go. So I'll pick a target at 540, and we'll see how that's going. Three flat is what it wants. Right. Ooh, definitely still a lot of wind right there. All right. Elevation was good though. All right, I think we're pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the MDS, known distance Eval prone, and I'll explain how that's gonna work here in a second. Alrighty, so now modern day sniper, known distance Eval in the prone position. 5 targets, minimum 10 rounds, maximum 15. The way this works is 2 impacts per target, but no more than 3 shots per target. So if I impact that first round, I'm gonna send a second round for a follow-up impact. The reason for that is we wanna prove that you are staying in the game, mentally, physically. You are making sure the conditions didn't change and you're getting a good follow-up shot with it. So if I impact that first shot, I follow up, hit that second one. If I miss the first, I then shoot, I impact round 2, follow up with round 3. If I miss shot 1 and shot 2 and I impact the third shot, that's it, I don't get a follow up because it's no more than 3 rounds per target. Now, if I shoot and I impact that first round, but I miss my follow up shot, that's it. You don't get round 3 to make up for it. There is no correction from there. So if I clean it, it's 10 rounds. Worst case, it's 15. So I paired the terrapin to the Kestrel, built out a target card, and lazed all the targets and created a target package here. So I'm gonna go ahead and go through this. Winds keep changing a lot, but we're gonna roll with it as is. So first target, 306.11. Impact, follow up. Impact, all right, target 2, 545, 3 flat. Impact, follow up. Impact, all right. Target 3, 748, 51. Not enough wind. Oh, too much. All right, split that difference. There we go. But that was the third round, so I don't get a follow-up on that. Moving on to target 4. 825, 5.9. Impact. Impact. All right, last target. 905, 6.9. All right. So I got one round in this mag, it feels like, and I'll have to do a magazine change. Let's see. I'm feeling 0.8. We'll find out. Oh, impact. Mag changeover. I'm gonna bump it to 0.9 because it favored right. Impact. There we go. Alrighty. So, kind of didn't do too hot on target. What was that, 3 at 750? Undercalled wind, then overcalled and met in the middle and split the difference. But other than that, cleaned it. I think that was 11 rounds, if I remember correctly. I think that was 11. Yeah, 10, and then I think I just fired 1. So it should be 11 rounds. 10 is a perfect score, so cool, not too bad. I'm happy with that. So that's the validating process, and that's our MDS, known distance eval. Now, if you guys ever want to do our eval or come to our courses and you do this and we put you through this eval and you're running a 6.5 Creedmoor like this, we cap it at about 700 yards for the furthest target, but this was 905 just because based on the targets that we have here at this range, I kind of had to go deeper. But that's that, and hope you guys got a kick out of that. Now, one last thing I will say though, is as this, the point of this was to see how the barrel performs with sustained rates of fire as it heats up and whatnot, because a lot of competitions, you might be dealing with around 10 rounds for a round count, maybe even up to the higher round counts of 15. I've done some stages where you're pumping some rounds. So it's good to know how's it perform. I found, especially suppressed with a gun or with a rifle, that as a barrel heats up, especially like the thinner contour ones like this, the bolt lift might get a little heavy, and I experienced that a little earlier, but before I did this MDS qual, I had probably about 10 minutes of letting it cool down, so I didn't have any heavy bolt lifts here, but earlier today I did, when I was kind of pumping some rounds through them. But it's still lined up, like trajectory-wise, group-wise, it was still fine. I just something to be aware of, that bolt lifts can get a little heavy as a barrel heats up, especially with a suppressor on it. That's not just this gun, I've experienced that with other rifles as well. So just some food for thought for you, but pretty happy with it. And now that it seems like the velocity is now, knock on wood, somewhat settled out and everything's validated, things seem to be lining up pretty well. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and episode 3 is going to be all about positional stuff. So it's going to be tripod work, some barricade stuff, and take it from there. See you guys in that video.